Welcome everybody to another edition of the EuroShow. I am McLeod, by the way. I'm not Matterall, by the way. I'm McLeod, by the way.
Caleb, by the way. Spot, by the way.
You're a friend of Matterall, though, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I am a friend of Matterall, by the way. But no, I'm McLeod. I'm the head of programming here at Talking Stations, and as you heard previously, I have Caleb here. Say hey, Caleb.
Caleb, by the way.
He's Caleb, by the way. Caleb is the head of branding here at Talking Stations, and also we have Dr. Spottymane. Hey, Spottymane.
Hello. I don't really have a title, but I am also a friend of Matterall.
He does a lot of good stuff when it comes to programming here at Talking Stations.
Do I have a title?
I think
I'll go find one.
If you don't, then we're definitely gonna need to make a title for you for sure, because you do a lot of good shit here. So, but anyway, we have a pretty good show for you. We're gonna run through two topics today, sort of fairly meaty-ish topics where we can talk at length, or somewhat at length at least, with regards to. I mean, we should probably just jump right in.
Before you do that, we may need to have some sort of overlay that says 2021, because to people that watch this show, they might think that they just jumped into some time machine and we're back in 2009 or something.
Why?
The topics of today is basically nostalgia hour and roll back to topics that used to be hot almost 10 years ago.
This is very true in actual fact. Like, it's very strange that we're talking about these particular topics.
Yeah, I think one of the source materials that you found was a 2008 thing. So
yeah, I think some of the pictures are from 2007 or 6, back when they had a spandex thing at CCP.
Yeah, and we've decided to only do those two topics, and the first one was based on the fact that fairly recently, Elite Dangerous launched their alpha for their version of what we would basically in EVE call walking in stations, and some nice demos and videos have already launched from that. So basically, when we say that EVE Online really doesn't have any competitors, which is still going to be true because those games are of course not really exactly the same USP as EVE Online, and we did a whole show covering some of that. But still, if we're talking about something like walking in stations, well, I guess the competitors have caught up, and we now both have fairly decent walking in stations in the game that's not really a game, and now apparently we're also getting it in Elite Dangerous. So, and it's actually looking good. I'm kind of impressed. I like what I'm seeing, and I still think that the CCP needs to go back and replug that walking in stations feature and put it back in.
So what do you
Our graphics card can do it now, man.
Yeah,
right.
They
won't melt.
Well, you don't want to melt your card because you probably won't get a replacement. But it's probably likely that our cards will be able to handle it at least.
Yeah, I think especially if it was ported to Unreal 4, I think we can manage. They won't melt, but be sure to check your settings, because as Mac just said, if you melt your graphics card, chances of you being able to get a new one is fairly slim. And I think we've covered this. And if they start offering 4K resolution on the equivalent of the Carbon engine, you may need one of those impossible to get GPUs.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's one of the problems, isn't it? I think if they ever want to bring it back, they actually would potentially have to revive the Carbon engine, because it's just not Unreal. While it it seems like a good idea to use Unreal or whatever, pick your favorite engine. Eve's already got an engine, and now you're having two engines in one game, and now you're starting to get a bit wacky. It's just
you say that, but as long as you transition in a nice way, in a sort of a meaningful way, you can potentially make the transition from one to the other to be. I would never say seamless. It will never be seamless, but at least be much less jarring than close that game down, open up that game kind of thing. So
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I think they could smooth it out eventually.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, they did some experiments a while back when it came to porting carbon assets into Unreal and figuring out how to do that. I think that's very much because they want to do something with all the assets that they already have, right? So when they do things like new games, or if they want to do a walking in stations thing in Unreal, they can basically just reuse all the assets that we already have. So our character creator and all that is pretty much usable,
there's
right?
I mean, I'm kind of gonna
No.
get we'll get to that with regards to well because the second sort of topic kind of comes into sort of the Unreal Engine sort of territory as well, but at least going the Unreal route is a lot less painful with regards to trying to actually develop your own 3D sort of like optimized 3D engine, especially when it comes to developing something that functions well from a first person shooter perspective, or even a third person shooter perspective.
They almost had the red latex lady.
They almost had what?
Yeah,
on Elite Dangerous.
Yeah, I noticed a very tight-fitting flight suit that almost looked like the latex we had in the Carbon engine.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to grab those shots, put them up so people have the context as to what you're talking about.
It's borderline not safe for work.
I mean, it's borderline, but like I think it's okay. Like I don't think people are going to chastise us, on Twitch, as it were. Well, but now that I've said that, Streisand Effect says it definitely is going to happen now. So
of course it is, and again, we have to remember that EVE Online is one of those developers that you would have thought that it was a White Wolf product if someone had shown it to you like 15 years ago, right? It's very gothic. It's very dark. With kind of a lot of, well, it used to have a lot of sexual overtone things, and if you go and check out the demo of the Carbon engine back then, the amount of lace and corset and stuff, it just, it was very obvious where this was moving, right?
Oh yeah,
because
very
it
much
was
so.
Functionally a White Wolf project.
Yeah, it was, and again, so the whole tie-in between the latex suits in the sci-fi universe and the corsets and lace in World of Darkness, it was a match made in heaven. I'm very sad that the CCP does not own White Wolf anymore. I do still think that those two should have belonged under the same umbrella, and it should have been CCP rolling out all the White Wolf and World of Darkness titles. They could have done at least the same job that other game developers have done, but that's a topic for another day, or maybe for another show upcoming.
Yeah. So up on the screen right now is the red latex like stuff that Caleb and
look at the shine on those buttocks.
Like, I mean, it's kind of gratuitous, to be completely fair, completely honest.
It's great.
It's a little bit sort of like, I wonder where your eye is drawn in that regard. Like, but yeah.
The ray tracing is helping you. You're getting the actual reflection of the latex.
I'm sure it's ray tracing, mate. I'm sure it's ray tracing.
It's an interesting choice of angles as well.
Oh dear. These things happen.
But don't you think that it's quite impressive what Elite Dangerous has actually done? I think it looks really, really good.
I think it looks pretty good, yeah.
It is pretty much what we were dreaming about back then, right? It has most of those things. Of course, it's a bit different theme. I didn't see that many pole dancers and whatnot. EVE Online and New Eden is a little bit more dark, and again,
I'm gonna chuck the Carbon kind of character technology like video up on here. Like, it is like this was basically sort of like the initial sort of presentation of, like, kind of what they wanted to do, and it was in conjunction with NVIDIA at the time as well.
It was bonkers technology. It was
at the time
so ahead of its time.
I mean, we are talking about almost 11 years ago. So you're talking about like fluid sort of was it like sort of like physically simulated hair, sort of fluid, cloth movement and that kind of stuff. Like,
not even Elite Dangerous have this, right? If you think about it, they have not added this type of clothing and draping, collision, and hair and stuff like that, because it's just this is something
and a lot of this, I think a lot of people would probably say like, well, why would you want this sort of thing? I mean, obviously that technology is like a really sort of definitely a good thing to have in an engine, but like, why would you have it in an engine sort of for, capsuleers? But the thing is, this was probably more primarily designed to work with the like the World of Darkness IP.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, I think the real question is, why would you try to do this 11 years ago?
Yeah,
exactly. That was the big question, right? Doing this now in 21 with what you can actually do with the Unreal Engine, of course, it's almost expected to push the envelope like this. But even for now, this type of stuff would be pushing it. It's something you usually only see from high-end titles and Square Enix products, right?
Oh yeah.
The silly thing about though, like that demo in particular, that kind of thing wasn't viable to have in a game. Like, yes, it would work in a tech demo, but it just there were technologies like that, and none of them particularly existed outside of tech demos. I think one of the closest I saw at the time, I think, was Borderlands. It had like a physics demo where, like, of all things, you opened a toilet and all the poop would come flying out as a big liquid, and it would be simulated on the floor. But the only way you could get that to run with like any appreciable frame rate was to have a second graphics card that was entirely dedicated to running the physics for it. Like, these things were they were both ahead of their time in terms of like it was quite an impressive technology, but also it was way ahead of what was doable by the end user. The end user just couldn't run that; it wasn't realistic.
Yeah, this was
would have been. We wouldn't have been asking, can it run Crysis? We would have been saying, can it run Carbon? It would have been that bad.
Yeah, very much so.
And it was pretty much so much tied into the CTO, the tech guy, that eventually got bought up or sniped by NVIDIA. He was an amazing coder, and yeah, I still get the feeling that he was sitting there on his 5,000 plus rig, and just pointing and laughing and doing some sort of hashtag no pause when he was testing everything, right? Like, why can't you run this? It works perfectly fine on my rig. Yeah. No one's got that, mate. No one.
It's like as it's just barely sort of hitting 30 FPS on his,
Exactly. And if you think about it, it was funny, right? Because I think I had just upgraded, but everyone that had not pretty much got their GPUs fried back then, right? It was really struggling or dying or actually literally burning and had to be, actually broke, right? So, and this is again because even back then, and well, maybe not so much today, but back then, Eve was known for potato mode, right? So it kept being capable of running even with fairly old setups. So we had a lot of players that still played on very old rigs, right? 3, 4, 5-year-old compared to the standard at the time. And they just got killed by this Carbon engine completely. And then it was forced initially, right? You couldn't opt out. You just got dropped straight into that and couldn't actually avoid it. So as soon as you loaded into Eve, it just started eating your GPU.
Yeah.
It was like, because it was so young as well, they hadn't matured anything like the graphics settings were thin to non-existent. So it wasn't even like you could turn that thing down if you couldn't turn it off. It was all high definition latex butts, and that was it. There was no choice. Your graphics card had to do it.
Hey, don't threaten me with a good time.
So I'm just quickly sort of showing in the background like some of the teaser stuff from EVE Online with regards to the Carbon engine and the walking station stuff, like the actual walking station stuff that had like, bars and stuff, and that sort of stuff. Like the stuff that we never got to see, but we all saw sort of this stuff as sort of promotional material, but it never really came to fruition.
But if you think about it, look how fucking ahead of its time it was, right? this is something that we, again, of course, now see on Elite Dangerous, and we see some of these qualities in games like Cyberpunk and the equivalent, right? So they were
I mean, we had
literally
it.
10 years ahead of the game, and it's like almost sad. I keep saying that the Carbon engine should have been a competitor. It should have been up there as the third choice. So it's like Unreal, Unity, or Carbon, and it would have gotten there if they had launched these things.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, like, we had it in the PlayStation Home. Like, PlayStation Home, when Dust 514 was, like, you know, had been launched, like, there was a Dust 514 lounge that you could go to, and it was a bar, and people could walk around as avatars and talk and this, that, and the other. Like, it was literally walking in stations, but it was in PlayStation. It was in PlayStation's home. But it wasn't on. You know, it was only accessible if you had a PlayStation. If you had bought Dust 514, it was weird.
I feel like McLeod has just done some sort of very vague segue here, because saying that the walking in stations was only available for PlayStation users almost gets us introduced to the topic that's going to follow after the advert.
Well,
right?
I mean that will follow, but like it is a bit of a nice sort of moving on. But I always thought it was weird that, you know, we'd waited for walking in stations for such a long period of time, and it never came, and all we got was the captain's quarters. Yet, you know, if you had a PlayStation 3 and Dust 514, you kind of had what people wanted from a walking stations thing, which was, you know, avatar interaction with other people, like
the social stuff, right?
The social
and
stuff,
that was the irony why I think I jokingly said that we were promised walking in stations and social interaction, and all we got was some sort of weird straitjacket and a rubber cell, right?
Yeah.
The door did not open. We could not get out.
Where is it? I've got all we got was this, basically.
Well, the huge difference with the PS Home lounge thing was that that's not running in any of CCP's technology. That's entirely basically just a bunch of assets, you know, a bunch of graphical models chucked into PS Home. So that was relatively easy to create compared to what walking in stations was supposed to be. And this is sort of kind of comes back to one of the points that we spoke about at the very beginning of inserting a secondary engine into Eve is incredibly hard. And so to have this in-house engine that they know, well, very intimately, was probably going to be one of the easiest ways to do it. As much as it sounds insane, but to actually have this engine that is yours, and it's not an external engine that you need to hire external devs, and you're reliant on a whole extra stack of technology. That's actually a huge nightmare.
See, part of me kind of
done was.
Oh, sorry, go for it. I interrupted you.
I think ultimately the goal with the Carbon was to kind of have a single unified engine. So it's functionally the same engine from spaceship to old guy walking around in a spacesuit.
But that is a really difficult thing to do. Like, I mean, I don't want to sort of, I don't want to downplay. I don't want us to downplay that, but like, you know, being able to create an engine that looks fantastic from, you know, from the minute sort of spinning top on a desk to the size of a planet with, you know, a ring of ice around it, like, you know, that is an exceptionally difficult thing to do in terms of capabilities for an engine. Like,
but think about it, right? All the ESI stuff that we have in EVE Online, right? So many of the functionalities have been ported that they now have the ability to do reading and actually writing permissions and all this stuff. And I'm sure CCP could actually expand that even further with quite a lot of functionality. Can you imagine something like what Fonsui is saying, where you can actually log into another title that is an Unreal title, but then you can actually interact with the other things in EVE Online? Why not be able to sit there and use your industry or your market stuff in EVE Online from, say, Dust 514, right? That's not crazy. It is technically possible.
It's possible, but that there's the distinction of that has to be a different game. You know, to do it in client, like they tried to do before they scrapped it, you have to use your own technology essentially. Of course, you can do it by using an Unreal Engine, but it's just there's a bunch of problems with it that make it very unsustainable in the long term. Yeah, unless you're intending to go down the route of porting your entire game to Unreal, for example.
Well, you just need to make the UI, right? You just need to have the UI that reads, say the market or the industry features and things like that.
Yes,
and it's not.
Again, it has to be a second game. You will find, if you can name off the top of your head a single game that has multiple engines within the game for different features, I will eat my hat, because it's just not something that's done. It's a bad idea in many ways. It's hard to articulate why. It just is a very bad idea.
I mean, I think the thing is, right, I think one of the things that that CCP and something that I think Hilmar's trying to do is, I think he's trying to like either create a way or a means to interact with the Eve universe as a family of products in a way that is somewhat seamless, but you jump from different engines to different engines. Like, you know, we talked previously about you know, how CCP is now you know, allowing us to sort of play EVE Online via a browser, right? And we've also talked about how, you know, you can have you know, these sort of browser-based sort of gaming experiences in the same way, you know, very much in the Stadia format, right? I think in some degree, Hilmar's kind of looking at sort of the idea or the premise of this as a way of being able to tie in different engines into an experience that is somewhat seamless, because you can kind of hide the kind of like the edges of those things with you know, a different flavor or a different sort of medium, if you know what I mean.
Yes, but the core point is, in terms of effort required to create this, say, walking in stations experience using anything other than essentially the engine that the spaceships run on, is equivalent to making an entirely separate game. Entirely 100% separate game.
The point I'm trying to make is that if they had a second game, if they had Dust 514, a lot of the features could be accessed from Dust 514, only that directly with just ESI-like calls and then a UI that's adapted, right? So I could literally sit in Dust 514 and actually browse the Eve market and do purchasing and have interaction and connections with my wallet in the main Eve, right? This would not be difficult to make, because it would basically just be database calls and ESI calls like that, and then it's just a matter of allowing read-write from that client. So that type of integration would become really, really simple. And again, if they are adding features like I think Mac had the clip where we saw the tabletop, the board game that they actually put into Walking in Stations, which is based on a game called Slay. That was
it. That was in the PlayStation Dust 514 Lounge, like specifically that particular video. This particular one that we have up at the moment, by the way, is Star Citizen. So like, just so you guys are aware. But sorry, I interrupted you. What were you saying, Caleb?
It's just if we had access to that, even if I'd still want them to give us proper in-game gambling like casinos, right? I know that's controversial, and we can maybe touch upon that this upcoming Friday, because I think we have some news about these things.
There can be ways. There's definitely ways that you can put that into a gaming scenario and in situation, like safely. We will talk about that on Friday, though, for sure.
The whole concept of interacting with the game through a external, a different game, essentially. Yeah, that is trivial to the point that that's pretty much what most bots do. So if you know how to write a bot, you could arguably write a second market game. You're going to get banned, but you could arguably do it. One thing that I want to touch on, because it's something that triggers me every time, and it's been mentioned in chat again, and I think it's worth reiterating because a lot of people seem to misunderstand. Eve Anywhere, the version of Eve that you can play in the browser, is not a different game. It is not running on a different engine. It is not fundamentally different in any way to Eve. It is simply Eve being rendered on another computer and streamed to you as per Twitch, YouTube, etc. It's so that while there may be some changes that can potentially enable things in the future, I wouldn't hold any kind of hope that the creation of Eve Anywhere means that now Eve is going to be super portable in terms of what platforms it can run on. It's only portable in the sense that it's now being streamed as a web service and not actually, the game is not actually running in your browser.
Can I just mention that the coolest hack that I discovered on the captain's quarters was when I found out that you could actually decide what videos were playing in the background in the actual captain's quarters. So
that was fantastic.
I did a little video way back where I converted Clear Skies and actually had my character in the captain's quarters watching Clear Skies on the actual captain's quarters screens. I think that was awesome.
That's more tasteful than I thought it was going to be. All the examples I saw of people doing that was, shall we say, adult content.
I think that was it Boom Boom Long Time, or was it Rain that had done something like that, where also figured out how to get the character to actually be naked. There's always stuff like that. Thank God for modders of the world. They are hilarious.
I'm trying to find examples, but trying to make sure that they're not too bad, if you know what I mean.
Get the blur filter ready. Get the blur filter ready.
Yeah. But that was, I remember that was actually one of the most coolest kind of things, and then they changed it so you couldn't actually do it. And
But again, imagine if we had something like a new Dust or a new third-person shooter avatar-based game with a captain's quarters where you could have screens and you could have screens showing what you want. So Twitch streams or Eve tournament or whatever, right? There could just be so much potential in having these things available. And of course, then we get back to this whole old drama with white paper and what are you allowed to actually stream, because it would be a little bit awkward if it was like YouPorn and Chatterbait and RedTube, right? But I still think that would be fun if it existed.
Yeah. I mean, I liked the fact that you could do it. That was a cool kind of aspect of that people sort of found out that you could actually do. You know, I thought it was pretty epic.
Arguably, if you want to play around a little bit, you can actually still replace the billboard videos. If you want to know how to do it, just ask me. But I can't guarantee you won't get banned because it is technically modifying the client.
Yeah.
But yes, you can replace the videos if you really feel like it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You do sometimes remind me of a new version of Entity, the Lord of Items in EVE Online, because he also had way too much knowledge of how to do weird stuff with the EVE game, and yeah, you sometimes sound very much like him, Spot.
There's a lot of it is actually it's openly available if you go to the seedier corners of GitHub, shall we say.
Oh dear.
There's a lot of stuff out there. I'm not going to go into any further detail because I don't want to encourage people to use it, because if you use it, you will get banned and you will deserve it. But yeah, there's a lot of tools out there that let you do very naughty things with the game client. No, I haven't used them. I just read about them because it's interesting from a technology point of view.
He's very technically savvy for a particular reason. You know, he likes to explore the technical kind of boundaries of things.
And we have covered in another episode why sometimes people like that is a huge benefit to actual developers, right?
Oh yeah, you know, for example, finding how to make the game load 70-80% faster. Yeah.
Or getting into an argument about whether a population cap is a real thing and then getting it completely wrong.
That may have happened.
That was a good one.
Oh, I mean, it was worth the try. It was worth the try there, Spot.
It was close enough.
When CCP told me how it actually works, yeah, I realized I was a complete moron.
It happens, dude. Like, you don't know what's in the minds of the coders at the time when they create these various different names for different things.
Oh no, it was actually really simple and really obvious. It's just when you're under about 15 layers of tin foil, things get blurry.
You can't see the wood for the trees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are we coming up on an ad break so
Yes.
we can segue into the next and very, very, very related topic?
Yes, very much so. So, we're going to go to an ad break now. We'll be back in, just a couple of minutes with the second topic for today's show. We'll be back in a few. Let's put it that way. Hey guys, welcome back. The first actually, strangely enough, and Spot has gotten this a couple of times lately, but obviously some of the video, a lot of the adverts there that you saw are actually fake, sort of fake adverts, taken from CCP's own Pulse videos. They're obviously of in-game CCP products, that kind of thing. But for some reason, people seem to think that the first advert that you saw for, I think is it ISK Industries?
Enterprises, but Industries is one of the corporations within.
So ISK Enterprises, it is also a fake kind of NPC corporation or something. It's not.
It's not fake. It's real.
It's Spod's. It's Spod's kind of thing. Like, that's his thing.
Yeah, the advert is real. The corporations are real. It's Spod that's fake.
God damn it! I spent a whole 3 hours on that. Come on.
But yeah,
$8.
if you guys want to have your own adverts on there, definitely get in touch with us and stuff. We can definitely make that happen. But anyway, onto the next the next topic of the show.
Can I just say before you start that, I told you so, because I'm pretty sure that about 6 months ago I said that I was expecting the official announcement about this project to hit about end of Q1, start of Q2, and here we go.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough. Anyway, topic 2. the other topic for the show, is that there was a degree of an I wouldn't say it's like an official announcement, but there was definitely conversation and like press release of some information about CCP's new shooter, the one that they're developing in London. So that's kind of an interesting thing.
We've pretty much been following it indirectly for a while, seeing the hires and listening to the buzz in the background.
Yeah.
But there has been pretty much completely mouth shut on any official announcement of it. They haven't talked about it outwardly, directly. They've only said that something is happening. But now, with this article and this interview with the studio head, we actually have a hard confirmation from CCP. So now it's official. This thing is being built. We know about the size of the team. We can expect that the next announcement will most likely be a small demo thing with the actual title being announced. But it's coming, boys. It's coming.
Yeah. So here's the article. It's CCP's London. CCP London's game is a genre-defining, hugely ambitious Eve-based shooter. Says Dev. I imagine the dev there in that regard is, CCP. But then again, I imagine I wouldn't expect, the developer of a game to not, hype up their own game,
Well, in this case, it was an article that's basically relaying what was in the other article that was an interview with the new studio head, right? So that article that you've got from WCC Tech is just basically relaying the information from the bigger article in the Biz Media UK edition, right?
Yeah. Is that the MCV develop sort of one? Oh yeah, Biz Media. Yeah. So this particular issue, I think we'll full screen it here just so we can see. CCP Reload shooter aims to be genre defining. The studio lead is Adrian Blunt, by the way.
Yeah, that's a big announcement, right? Saying that it's going to be genre defining.
Yeah,
that's a big balls, right?
Yeah,
there.
I would be interested to see how they how they are going to sort of get that. Like I have a feeling how they can make it kind of interesting, but I haven't seen and I definitely have talked about it in other shows and other things. And in other related kind of like Eve circles and stuff, and I highly doubt any of that has ever gotten to them in any way, shape, or form. But if it happens to be in some way, shape, or form maps that are sort of spherical to some degree in nature, right? So it's not so the environment is like kind of almost unique to it. Running around the outsides of Eve ships, kind of thing. So you're able to basically sort of, sort of attack people from unique kind of angles to some degree, or be able to strafe people in new and interesting kind of ways. That would be kind of really cool. But obviously, I don't expect that because like. I have absolutely no idea as to what CCP kind of aims to want to do to make this genre defining, but we'll see, I guess.
Well, in the last time we saw anything of this game, it was all ship based, wasn't it? As in, it all took place on a ship to some extent.
Yeah, that was when it was still a shooter, right? We have to remember that well, it was a traditional shooter when we got
that was the project.
Dust 514 was a traditional shooter, right?
Yeah.
When that got sunset, then the new idea was to do a Project Legion that was basically Dust on PC, right?
Yeah,
with a few changes. Then that got slated, and then Project Nova was supposed to be a shooter on environment things like ships, and it was almost, I think, don't you call them tournament shooters or something like that? It's very very focused on the competitive stuff and not necessarily on environment.
It was
like
never
that.
like it was never really a total war sort of thing, like in the same way that Dust 514 was more of a, you had infantry combat. You also had like various different sort of like vehicle combat, including like sort of I wouldn't say that there was like aircraft combat, but like there were definitely aircraft in Dust 514. They didn't play the most massive role, but they definitely could play a role in terms of air to ground.
Yeah, and you had actual integration into EVE Online where you could do actual Order-Stellar bombardments, where it was actually players in EVE that managed the bombardment. So it was just a very different thing. The point is that this new title, because then all these projects were slated and they have been pretty silent for at least 2, maybe almost 3 years now, where we have not really gotten a lot of information on any kind. So they've been very hush-hush. But we know that the new game is going to be a third-person shooter. So it's not a first-person shooter. We know that it's going to take place in a traditional New Eden universe. I think they kind of hint that it's going to be very similar to Dust when it comes to the way that it feels. But I think it's going to have more in common with some of the other third-person environment shooters that we already know. Which one was it? PlanetSide 2 was mentioned.
You'll probably have like sort of things like Apex Legends as well. That would be somewhat similar-ish, I imagine.
But the closest guesstimate from the tiny little crumbs that we've heard about that I would go for is something like Destiny.
Yeah, Destiny would be a good kind of example.
Wouldn't be a bad thing, but that's not genre defining.
No, it definitely isn't. So just so people who are aware, like the footage that is being played at the moment on the screen is the Project Nova stuff. So this is kind of like alpha, like I wouldn't say alpha. Like, would you say alpha gameplay? Like it was, I guess it was alpha game. It was a proof of concept. It wasn't even really alpha, but like it was like a multiplayer PvP, PvE sort of situation.
Yeah, it was a very demo,
but
very
it was
early alpha, but it was working and it was playable, and I think they allowed it to be played at FanFest at least 1 or 2 years in a row.
Yeah. This footage is from FanFest.
And this is very similar to what they did with Valkyrie back in the day, right? And Gunjack, where they kind of had something almost ready, and then they play tested it with the player base at events, and because of the popularity, they decided to actually go ahead and actually make it a project. And again, okay, VR tech was not there, so that project kind of failed. But Gunjack was a success. It even made profit, right? So
they made a sequel. Like it was to the point where they actually made a sequel. So,
and again, Dust was also quote unquote a success. The problem was that they had a shitty deal with PlayStation, right? So the whole exclusiveness on a platform that was about to die, and problem with figuring out how to port it so it was available on the new platform as well. It was just a whole mess, right?
Yeah,
but it was popular, and it was definitely you can call it a success, but it didn't make its profit back.
Yeah, the issue that they had with PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 was things weren't portable. Like you couldn't just take one and just change a couple of little things, add a few a few lines of code and this, that, and the other, or whatever, to make it kind of work with PlayStation 4. It had to be kind of almost sort of redesigned.
I dare be contrarian and say that wasn't the problem, because there were demo and internal builds of Dust that did run on PC, and there may have been ones that ran on PS4. It was all just down to the terms of that agreement, where they were essentially bound for that title to be PS3 forevermore. And if they wanted to release it anywhere else, it had to be a new title.
I think
of course,
actually
why you got the new titles, right? That's why you had the whole Legion and Nova and making a complete revamp of the whole thing. That must have been because it was closed by some sort of contractual agreement.
So this would make a lot of sense because I believe at the time, because obviously it's Sony and I think it was PlanetSide 2 was still a Sony product. They hadn't broken it down to Daybreak Games at that particular point. Sony was still hoping to move PlanetSide 2 and release it on consoles on PlayStation. I think initially they were going to do it PlayStation 3, but then they did it PlayStation 4. And so I think the thing is, they liked, they were interested in what CCP were doing, but they had their own rival product that they were, obviously going to prefer.
And this time it looks like, to me, like CCP is really learning from their prior mistakes, right?
Yes.
The fact that they're doing this as a third person, of course, some people will complain a little bit and say, why not just make a shooter? We were promised a shooter and first person is what shooters are. Yeah, sure. But the point is that in this case, if they're doing this on PC, right, initially launches on PC, then because it's a third person, it is so adoptable to consoles, because consoles are so friendly when it comes to third-person shooter models, right? So then they actually have the advantage of being able to go from PC onto all the other consoles almost immediately, right? So that is going to be a massive potential market that they can get if the game is actually just decent. I'm going to claim that it doesn't really even have to be very good; it just have to be decent.
Yeah, very much so.
The third-person thing actually does worry me, not in just that I do prefer first person, but beyond that, because one of the things that really caught my attention with Dust was it's sort of, you might would it be too inaccurate to think of it as in between Halo and Battlefield in terms of how the game kind of works?
Pretty much correct.
And
they didn't want it to be a Twitch shooter. They wanted it to be something that you could have situations of like Twitch gameplay, but you also had things where, you had to chew through a bunch of HP.
But the point is, there's no other games that can fall into that spectrum of Halo-y, Battlefield-y, really, apart from, say, Gears of War, that are primarily third person. It's a point of view that doesn't necessarily work when it comes to that somewhat all-out warfare style, which is the style that, at least for me personally, that's what I want from Dust. I want basically space Battlefield with EVE connection. I would love that, but I get the feeling it's not going to be that. It's going to be more along the Destiny route, which is, again, still good, and I'm probably going to play the hell out of it, but not what's on my wish list.
So I had a bit of a concern to some degree when I was reading this, thinking back to how Dust sort of came and went to some degree, thinking, oh god, they're going to get stuck in sort of like previous tech, right? And they're not going to be able to sort of move and shift over to the more the cutting edge stuff, right? Basically because it literally said here in the press release that its London-based office has been working on an Unreal Engine 4 project for a few years now, and I was there kind of thinking to myself, oh crap, do they realize that Unreal Engine 5 is coming along and it looks fucking amazing, right? And I was there thinking to myself, like, is it forward portable? Is it forward compatible? Like, and kind of looking through Unreal Engine 5 and coming across this where they're designing forward compatibility. So thank God.
But again, if it just has this loader thing or beginner area where I can run around and meet my other EVE Online friends, and I can actually use the assets from EVE Online, so I can have the same drop suits and the same clothing and the same pink shoes or whatever is your fancy, right? The whole Space Barbie will explode if this thing is just decent. And again, the third person aspect is the superior one when you're talking about something where you're trying to show off your vanity items. So I think just for these reasons, it's the right choice. And again, I play the hell out of third person games, whether it's the Tomb Raiders, The Last of Us, Horizon Zero Dawn, hell, even Hitman. It's like all these games are just amazing gameplay. And I think if CCP lands this in a place where it has good gameplay, good competitive opportunities where I can actually shoot people in the face like you do in Fortnite and whatnot, this is going to be borderline a game changer. Not because it's massively novel, but because of the scale of things and how it integrates into another title and another universe and reuses assets from those universes in a way that makes sense. Hell, even if they do unified Plex economy, so I can actually buy and play that game with assets from EVE Online, whatever. There's just so much they can do where they can actually claim that hat and say, this is game breaking and novel. Not in the initial parts, but in how the parts are put together.
Yeah. So if people are kind of wondering, the visuals up on the screen at the moment is the Unreal 5 sort of preview. Basically, I just want to get people's kind of ideas as to how realistic potentially a sort of a Project Nova-esque kind of game from CCP could potentially go in terms of realism, in terms of complexity and detail and that sort of thing.
And of
obviously,
course, it's basically a Tomb Raider clone that's actually running right now, right?
Yeah, it's a Tomb Raider clone.
Amazing graphics. Yeah, eat your heart out. This is just too gorgeous. If you could have something like this for an EVE title, my brain would blow.
Yeah, they've literally said for the for this kind of stuff is that they can put into and natively run. I think it's cinema level, cinema sort of polygon level sort of models and stuff, and use it real time. Like they don't have to downgrade the polygon count in various different models to make it run smoothly, which is insane.
You do have to take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Like this example, as amazing as it looks, there's one character, there's one light source. It's a controlled environment. This is true. It's not pre-rendered, but it's like it's so pre-handled and pre-set up that they could have optimized this to absolute hell and back.
That is true. Yeah.
So a real game, a quote unquote real game, would be probably 90% this, but I wouldn't expect this quite level of absolutely perfection, but they'll get close.
Yeah.
Just basically temper your expectations a little bit. But this does look good.
Yeah, you do have to temper your expectations. Like, I think a lot of people who saw this initially was like, there is no way that this is going to be the level of detail that we're going to get, like, with Unreal Engine 5 and like a PlayStation 5. Like, I think people will see that you probably won't get this level of detail in every single title that you play with, that's running Unreal Engine 5. But like, it's just a demonstration of how far you can go.
This still looks to me like Unreal trying to push Eidos to actually do a new Tomb Raider title. Look what we can do. If you get our new engine, you can make this game.
Yeah, exactly. But back to the the release, the press release. Did any of you sort of see anything particularly that stood out?
I think the important thing was the size of the team already is up in the 40 employees range, and where they basically have the same attitude that they are very much ready to expand that as the title gains in popularity. And I think this is all about managing the hype, and I'm really hoping that they're going to start lifting the lid and showing us some things of what is actually being planned. Because if they get the right hype around this, again, Sugar Daddy has a lot of money. They just saved 200 plus million, right? So there's money to throw at this if the hype is there, and if you then start opening up for some early alpha access and things like that, this train is already running at full speed.
I think maybe the elephant in the room that McLeod was alluding to is the mention of what do they call it? Basically, like a CSM of some sort that is already inputting in the game somehow.
That's an advisory group, which is most likely. Well, no, we know where this is happening. They've handpicked, I think, a few of the old elite Dust people from the Dust community that's pretty much been alive since Dust was sunsetted, right? So these are the people that they've been asking for advice and input. I just hope that they don't land this too much in a competitive shooter, because even though I understand people that have a passion for competitive shooters and first person and all that stuff, but that's just not the right segment to hit if you want to make money.
Yeah, honestly, when it comes to generating income, and like I know that sort of, you know, a lot of gamers kind of want the developers to sort of think, you know, of gameplay first, monetization second, and that rightly so. But at the end of the day, you do have to kind of make some revenue out of something that you've poured a ton of money and a ton of time and effort into. You know, it's in some way, shape, or form, and it's one of those things that third-person games really sell the cosmetic aspect of, you know, making your character look good. Right, and if you, because you can see them, you literally see them. It's, you know, always on the screen.
Just think about it, right, Mac? You and I have talked a lot about things like the Assassin's Creed games, which of course is single player, so you can't directly one-to-one compare them, and you run out of content. But in an EVE game, in a CCP title, the content is the other players and the assets that are being utilized in different ways, and even some added procedural, I don't know, PvE-like content. This game goes on forever, and this is exactly what I need, right? Because I keep running out of third-person games because I finished them, right? I finished Last of Us. I finished the Assassin's Creed games. Hell, you can even compare it to something like the Spider-Man games. I finished these games, and there's nothing left, and there's all the end-level stuff, and it's horrible. It's the same with Red Dead Redemption. I know there's maybe someone out there that's going to say, "Oh, Red Dead Redemption 2 on online is fine." No, it's not. It's a horrible game. The actual game is amazing. The online experience is poo-poo, right? But if that was the core and it had this, I could just play this forever. And I think that's the market model that CCP needs to hit. And this is what is going to be novel, because no other game out there has captured that yet. It's all been the other way around. It's a solo player game first, and then it's a multiplayer very bad design at the end, right?
Yeah, but the thing that I find both is kind of comical, but also a little bit sort of, you know, it's a little bit disappointing when it comes to sort of games like, you know, kind of like Red Dead and the Assassin's Creed sort of stuff. Is like, I know when you're digging into one of those open world games, because like you disappear. Like you literally just disappear, and I don't know where the hell you went to, where you've gone to, and then like you appear after a little while, sort of like, you know, out of the blue, just kind of like, I'm back. I know I didn't die, you know, like, you know, I am still alive, by the way.
Well, but this is different, right, Mac? Because this is persistent, right? It's going to end up being persistent. That means that you can play hours all the time. It's not like you need to do that manic grind and finish it.
No, I know, but the other thing is, like, you know, when it's a multiplayer game, like, I can play it with you, and I know that you're actually still alive.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true.
So there's that, and that's a positive kind of side, like very much a side of, you know, the open world kind of almost adventure-y kind of titles that it is sort of missing. You know, and obviously, as you say, Red Dead Redemption tried to do that with Red Dead Online, and it doesn't really work as well, like in any way, shape, or form.
I can already see where this is going to end, right? This is going to be, I'm going to have Don Rhea in my comm screaming, "You have to come and help with grind and crabbing," and I'm going to say, no, I don't have time. And then I'm going to have Mac in the other ear saying, we're going to have to go and shoot these dudes in the face. I was like, no, guys, I'm watching pole dancers in the bar and playing the board game. I don't have time for this action-based stuff.
Playing Texas Hold'em and watching strippers.
Exactly. I'm playing Texas Hold'em and watching strippers.
I can see that situation occurring in a really weird way. Anyway, we should probably leave it there because I think that's a good example of us sort of reaching the end of the material that we have pre-composed, as it were.
We end the comment on strippers and pole dancing, and
yes.
Make sure that it gets in the game, CCP. If we do not have pole dancers and stripping in an Eve title, I will be so disappointed.
And just to make sure that people understand this, there probably should be strippers of all various different.
And we got both male and female strippers,
male, female,
yeah.
Whatever, and
whatever in between,
whatever in betweens that you want, whatever, Anyway, we'll leave that there. So, as always, if you like what you've seen, definitely follow the channel. If you're watching this on YouTube and that kind of thing, definitely give us a like, thumbs up, all that jazz. But that'll about do it. That'll about do it for today's episode. Definitely check out Matterall's stream or Matterall's sort of like daily episode, sort of YouTube. I'm getting tongue tied here. Matterall's daily Eve sort of show on the US time zone. That'll be in, I think, probably about 4 hours, 5 hours.
Yeah, something like
4 hours. I think it's 4 hours.
hours.
Somewhere around about that. But definitely check that out. But as for us, that'll about do it. And
we'll be back Friday.
We'll be back Friday. Yes, for sure. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.